So guys, welcome back. This is Val. In today's video, I'm gonna quickly cover a really cool lighting scenario or technique you can use, and that is to be kind of near a neon sign or a light source that's very strong. There's a lot of them in the game, right? And use that as a light source that comes from the side or from behind. What happens when you do that, let me just open up here. Excuse me if I'm going up and down. This game inverts. I played with inverted y-axis, and this game inverts it back to normal when I go into photo mode. So what you want to do is you want to keep that cool lighting as narrow as possible, something like that, right? That also serves as a cool backdrop. So what you can do with it, you can turn on autofocus, or let's do custom, and let's just make sure Eve is yellow, right? So she receives maximum sharpness, and then the backdrop is in the background. Pretty cool. Now, this you can also zoom in. All right. And you want to, for a professional result, you want to pair this with an additional light. So what you do here, before doing that, let's just grab some expression here. All right, and then we can look at camera. Pretty cool. And I'm gonna turn off the drone just to make sure that the light doesn't hit her. Sometimes the drone projects some extra light, right? Then I'm gonna go here. And here we can control the overall lighting. This is how much the neon sign will project onto her, including everything else, which is pretty cool because you can control that separately, right? Let's do almost maximum here, I'd say. Now I'm gonna turn on light number 1, which is this one. And what we're gonna do is add 2 lights. One of them is going to be briefly, as you can see, something behind Eve, like so, right? We're going to capture a little bit of that in her hair, and also like a silhouette going around her shoulders and neck and so forth. This is like a professional way of, adding lights. Also, pay attention to what the light is doing on the environment. And if it's creating chaos, which it does right now, you can go ahead here, target, see, is it target? Instead of all, you set only characters. That way that light will not touch the backdrop, but be instead on Eve alone. So let's move the light a little bit to, I want this to be really, really steep. Let's just move it up a little bit. Something like that, right? There's always, I've been teaching lighting for many years, and there is always something that happens when you add light, and that is lights. As you can see, there is light on her chest right now. When I back it off a little bit more, it disappears, right? So lights do always several things. They project light, they bounce off light, and they also create shadows, and they also do damage. And you want to avoid damage in this case as much as possible, right? So somewhere around here, we got a little bit of nice lighting on the shoulder, on her hair, and so forth. And we can also turn off shadow casting if we want, just to see how it looks. In this case, it looks horrible, so we're going to keep it on so that her head kind of prevents her chest from seeing the light, all right? Now, we can do a few things here. We're going to add one more light in a second from the front. Just before doing that, we can here turn on to have the same kind of style from behind. And that's an idea that we don't have to have, but we can choose to have, right? We can have red here. But something that looks really cool is, just go for, let's add blue, and then I'm going to go down here to hue, because something that's really cool is using opposites. When you're using color, you want to use 2 max, because otherwise it's gonna turn out in a like a zoo, right? You don't want to have a zoo in your render. You want to have kind of like a clean image. So opposites work pretty well, and the opposite to red, if you look down at the bottom where it says hue, right? There was a slider there. See where it says red? Right in the middle of from it here, it is cyan. And cyan is the direct opposite. So you're not just simply move from where you are, like in this case is red behind her, to the direct opposite, which is cyan. And this works really, really well in this case, right? So I want to keep it there for now. You can, of course, adjust saturation and so forth. And by the way, we're going to be doing more advanced stuff later. We can actually control the lights later on in Photoshop. Right now, I'm just doing this really quickly. So just to show you that you can play with, your environments and so forth, right? Pretty cool. All right, so let's go to light number 2. All right, number 2, and turn it on. Now, the second light, I want to bring that forward. Yeah, way too much of it, right? What you want to do with this is going to be our filler or frontal kind of soft light to project extra light onto Eve. And you want that light to be slightly above. See, when it's straight towards her, it lacks shadows. When you put it a little bit higher up, it kind of, projects a little bit of shadow underneath her chin and so forth, right? You want to still catch her eyes if possible. It's not always possible. So in some cases, you have to have extra lights for the eyes. Anyway, this light is way too intense. First of all, I'm going to back it off a little bit so it's more gentle and covers her entire body. All right. I'm going to move it up a bit more. There we go. And we'll move it to the left. Let's see where we have a cool angle. Ideally, when you're playing with lights, this is going to be a really soft light. You don't want to have too much shadows on her or too much, stuff going on. Something like that. This is just a soft extra light from the front. However, it's way too intense as of now. And when you're playing with other types of lights, which we're going to cover in a different video, you can actually have a darker side towards the camera, which we are not going to use this time around because this is just a soft light. So target all. No, I'd say we target just her. Or, yeah, it's pretty good on the background too, right? It just adds extra stuff there. However, we're going to turn off shadow just to see how it looks. Looks awful, so I'll keep it on. And range, we can drag it down, which means it's going to hit her and then fade off before it hits the backdrop. This is something you can control with lights, right? How much will they, hit your character and the backdrop? If it's a long range, it will. If it's a short range, it will not. So that's a way of, controlling that. I see. I want a little bit of that hitting the background, something like that. But I'm gonna let's go for red and then go for cyan. I'm gonna keep the same opposite here as the backlight, right? As the silhouette we added a moment ago. And then we're gonna go for intensity and dial it down a notch. So here we have a more professional setup. We have a very strong light source from the right. It's way too much of it though, so I'm gonna move the camera a little bit. I'll go here. Move the camera slightly to the left. I just think it's a little bit too much of that. You can also zoom in. By zooming in, you will actually see less of the backdrop, which means it's going to be less annoying. All right. Let's see. Something like that. Move the camera a little bit closer. And I'm trying to project her on the upper right side, her eyes on the upper right part of the image. And I'm gonna readjust the focal thing here. Let's just go. Ideally, you want to have focus on the eyes of a character. So that's where we are right now. Let's turn it off. There we go. And now by adjusting this one here, the aperture, you will control how much softness we're gonna have. Are we gonna have complete sharpness, or are we gonna have complete, blurriness like that? I think this is a little bit too much. So I'm gonna lower it slightly by increasing the aperture number. Something like that. I still like the blurriness of the backdrop. I think that looks pretty cool. I think the PlayStation Pro, whatever PSSR, is creating some issues with her hair here. So that's ideally, maybe we can blur it more or blur less. Let's see how that looks. Doesn't look good. That's unfortunately a drawback. Hair is always going to be some kind of issues with it, right? Either you're going to have some hair strand or hair bands in a way, and you got to, counter that somehow. Anyway, what we can try is different poses, right? We didn't alter any poses. I just froze her right there, right? So let's try. And she disappears. Let me zoom out a little bit so we see where she goes. So I can see her. And here we go. Thumbs up. That's a pretty cool one. The hands are pretty cool here. That one is pretty cool. I think I like this one. Yeah. Hush. I like it. It's pretty cool. So, when framing, people, specifically when you're very close to them, as we are right now, you want to avoid, bumping the head or hair into a straight line, which we have just behind Eve's head. This is the vertical red line. So I'm going to shift the camera a little bit to the left to avoid that, right? And now I'd like to readjust this one, sharpness, right? Put it on the eyes, somewhere on there. Turn it off. There we go. And her hand is covering her face. So I'm just gonna adjust the camera slightly. See if we can do that. I think we can do something like that. And we are getting a lot of PSSR stuff here in our way, right? That's the stuff around her hand. That's something, unfortunately, that follows at times. And you can avoid by zooming out with the camera. That will, change how the image is projected and done. Let's try that. Or we can move closer. Let's see, we can go here. Visualization on. Let's see if we can get it. Just so right on her left eye, which is the closest towards the camera. Turn off that. And that's something I'm pretty happy with. Looks pretty cool, right? Now, there are a lot more things we can do with an image before it's done. One of which is gonna be using here frame. We can use frame, right? And another thing we're gonna do is vignette. Put it almost on max so that it kind of fades away the edges. And the more stuff you add to your image, when you're playing, the more you notice that, well, suddenly the main light projected towards her is maybe a little bit too much, or the other lights are a little bit too much, right? So let's try and see if we can tone down the red. This is the red hitting her from the sign. I think that one's pretty good, right? Let's not change that. Light number 2 is the one frontal. So we could bring it down a notch. It's a little bit too intense. when you have a lot of lights like you have here, you don't want to overpower your image, with like so. It's gonna be a little bit too much, right? So that's why you want to, keep the in this case the frontal light kind of more like a dimmer version and let the other lights talk more. And speaking of lights, we're gonna cover number one. This one here. This is the one from the side behind. I'd like that to be a little bit stronger. Let's increase intensity. Often these lights that come at a steep angle can be a little bit harder. They can be more intense. It just it's something that, because of their steep angle, because it's so little of them that's visible, we can have more of them, right? So that's pretty much that. And then we're gonna go for, let's try scatter. It doesn't do so much. Let's see how scatter on number 2, which is the frontal light, works. Scatter. No, doesn't change much. All right. So pretty much, I'd say we are pretty done, right? I'm gonna hide the. I think maybe we could adjust the height. Let me grab this screenshot. I'm gonna hide the copyright and gonna go for, let's see where we are. Gonna grab some filters before we're done, but one thing I want to do is just try a little bit of camera roll. Sometimes when you have stuff in your background like bars or straight lines, sometimes rotating them can break the image a little bit and kind of break the static effect of those lines, because sometimes those lines align with your image and make it look more, well, less vibrant, so to speak, right? So sometimes a little bit of angle, as you can see, makes the background less distracting as well and makes it more kind of fun to watch, right? That's that. And let me just try and go for, see if we can use some kind of filter maybe. It's kind of cool. That's really cool. Kind of funny colors, this one here. I like this cool, but then again, what we want to do is we can tone it down a bit, right? There's a slider for just how much of that tonality we're gonna have. Because the red is pretty intense, and everything that's intense uses attention. And by shifting this, the filter intensity towards a little bit more, we're getting the background to kind of shift color from yellow to orangish. It's no longer static. So I think that kind of works well here, right? And finally, chromatic aberration. I think that's gonna work wonders on our background, right? So we can use a bit of that. Not film grain. However, I'd like to have change. See if we can change the height. I'm gonna just take the photo first, in case there's a power failure. That happens, right? Let me see if I can move. This is the light number 2. This is the one that comes from the front. If I can move that down a little bit. Let's say, saturation. Why not? Desaturate slightly. Yeah, right? Yeah, a little bit less. That's cool. And maybe slightly less bright. Cool. And I'd like to see if we can maybe move that light down a bit with the left stick right now. What happens when I move it down? I'm going to shift the shadows, you can see, right? That's not good. When I move it up, We shift shadows more. We intensify. I think it looks pretty good the way it was. Somewhere around here. Let's just move left and right a little bit. See if we can. Again, this is just a soft light, right? So it's not meant to do any wonders. And I think it's a little bit too intense still. Just tone it down a bit more. Cool. I want the backlights here, the side lights to do more of the talking, so to speak, right? So pretty cool. Let me just see if we can maybe get a different expression. Kiss. Sad. Surprise. Tease. I think the one we had was pretty good. Let's go with that. Laugh is also good. Kiss. Laugh. Happy. Smile. Content. Daydream. Wake. Sad. I think happy is good here. All right. So that is it. And the thing is, there is only, so much you can do with a in-game photo, right? You will not get everything perfect because it's not really possible. It's too, I should say, it's too kind of basic. You don't have the same control as when you're in the 3D software, but there are ways of getting a lot more control. And I'm going to show you that in a different video. We're going to, take our image into Photoshop. I'll show you really cool ways how you can actually relight your image inside Photoshop. It's going to be mind-blowing. More on that in a different video. So guys, that's pretty much all for today. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked the video, hit like and subscribe. It helps me grow the channel and create more cool free content. So guys, that's all. Have fun. See you soon again.